我们今天的讲员陈婉秋女士。
Our speaker today, Wang Chen.
OK， 我简短介绍一下，她是美国匹兹堡州立大学英美文学硕士，是纽约大学高校管理硕士。她拿过美国哈佛大学 Admission Institute 的申请大学专业证书，并在斯坦福大学在任职管理主任10年，她负责 admissions。
Okay, Ms. Wang.She graduated from Hubei University, China, and she also graduated from Pittsburgh University, United States, and New York. And she also received her professional admission certificate from Harvard University, and she also worked in Stanford admission office for over 10 years.
所以今天我们请到的讲员是最适合讲这个题目，而且我们去年请过他，他的题目非常生动。今天大概有90张 PowerPoint， 所以最好绑紧你的安全带。
Yeah, our speaker, she's the most qualified person to speak in this topic, in this area. And last year, approximately same time, she also had a similar seminar here. And today she prepared over 90 slides for all of you.
You better fasten your seatbelt.
Thank you so much for coming to this seminar this morning. The fact that you chose to come here versus going to somewhere else says a lot about your commitment to education. And I want you to know that it's exactly this kind of commitment that motivates me to do what I do. That is to helping families in preparing for the kids' education for college. Before I start the presentation, I want to thank a few very, very important people. These are the Holiday of Plaza volunteers. As you can tell, it takes a whole team to make a community service event like this happen. I just want to thank the volunteers for your dedication, unselfishness, and unwavering support in bringing seminars like this to the Holiday Plaza month after month and year after year. It's not easy, so thank you. There is another very special person here today that I want to acknowledge. He's my cell group leader. He's my spiritual inspiration. He's my good friend in both good and bad times. And I can tell you, I had bad times. And that special person is my friend, Feng Cao, who is also a professional photographer. Now, just very quickly, a couple of slides about myself. Before we start the presentation. That's it, that's me. I'd like to start the presentation with this slide. About 1 year ago, I was in an undergrad conference in Boston where Dean Spencer from University of Michigan and Dean Shore from Stanford did a joint presentation. Their topic is practical recruiting, finding the stars. What's the key word? Can you tell me there is one magic word here. What is it? Stars. Yeah. In our Chinese saying, there's something goes like 知己知彼，百战百胜. Meaning in English, know yourself, know your competition. And when you know what the institutions are looking for, you are more likely to position yourself and beat the odds and win the game. So that word sets the tone as well as the context for my presentation today. I think to understand admissions, it's always a good idea to start with some numbers. Let's start with UC's numbers. As you can tell, that UC is a very stratified system. From UC Berkeley, slightly over 20%, to Merced. And you can also tell from this number, UCLA is probably the most popular UC campus with over 50,000 applications each year. So if your objective is to get into a UC campus, I tell you, most likely there will be a space for you. So that's good to know too. Now at the Ivy League, the situation is very, very different. And as you can tell, even within the Ivy League, the selectivity varies a lot, from 7% at Harvard to 20% at Cornell. Now, other selective universities, from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, to Stanford University, which is not far from here, 9%. Now, this is a very important chart that I'd like to share you, because this is a chart that tells you everything about what's really going on in the nation's selective campuses. And as you can tell on the left, that is a big chunk. It shows you the admitted students from the academic pool, which is the most competitive pool, and from that pool, the students are about less than 50% of the admitted class. And then on the right, you can see some, those are different categories. I often call those categories slices with cheese. What it means is if you have one or two or more of those slices, your chance for admission will significantly increase. This is because the things on the left help the institution meet their needs. For example, they need athletes to sell tickets so they bring revenue to campus. They need artists to create campus spirit. So all of those help the institution. And therefore, if you have the left, you are strong academically, and you also have a slice on the right, your chance will be much better. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about the categories on the right. On every single application, you will see a category which is called affiliations, and I'm using Stanford as an example. It asks you to identify your connection with that particular institution, and they ask you to check all the boxes that apply. So say Stanford University admits 2,000 students each year, and the category admitted student from this kind of affiliation would be about at least 20%. So let me give you another example. Do you know how many varsity sports teams does Stanford have? Does anybody know? 35. So say each year, 5 seniors will have to graduate from each of those 35 teams. Stanford will have to admit another 5 freshmen to fill those slots. So that would be 175. However, the world is not perfect, even for an institution like Stanford, because not everybody who is admitted will go to Stanford. So in order for them to get those 5 seats, fill those 5 seats, they probably will have to admit 7 students, for each of the 35 teams. So that is how many? 245. Didn't we say they admitted 2,000 students, and you see 20% for the alumni legacy category, and then over 200 people? There isn't much left. So that's why we need to know what's really going on. For Asian Americans, for most of us sitting here today, we belong to that one category, that is academic. And that is why academic, is so important. Now, within the academic applicant pool, how, what is it like? Now this is something put together by Dean Shore. He said even with this academic category, they can easily admit how many? 4 times, easily, right? Then the question is, okay, then how do you select from all these talented students? And this is something else he said. There is one sentence that is extremely critical that I'm going to read for you. He says, we look for thoughtful, eager, and highly engaged students who will make a difference at Stanford and the world beyond. This is the key. And I will go back and I'll talk about this later. Now, if you ever hear from your parents to keep your grades strong, they are probably right. Now you have seen this chart, right? So let's see here. This is the class that will graduate in 2011 from MIT. And you can tell, there is a strong correlation between your class rank and the percent of acceptance. You see students in the top 5%, with this many people apply and this many people admitted, and the admitted rate is 21%. And you can see anything below the 5%, see the admitted rate is much lower. Now let's look at Stanford, our neighbor. The percent of people who have a score of 800 or a perfect score for the critical reading in the SAT test. And within this group, the admit rate is 23%. And then it gets lower. Same thing here. This is how many people, percent of people who score perfectly in the math SAT test, and this is the admit rate. So now let's start with your freshman year. I like to start your freshman year with someone who is extremely important for you. That is your school counselor. Usually you have the same counselor, when you start and when you graduate. And I cannot tell you, how many students, they don't know who the counselor is. And I often tell them, private consultants like me, we can never replace your school consultants. At best, we can complement your counselor's work so that you can get the best of both worlds. And as you can see, counselors, they do many, many things, and one of which becomes extremely critical when it's time for you to apply for college. That is, there is a form called Secondary School Report. And that is a required letter of recommendation that your counselor will have to write for you. And on this form, your counselor is asked to recommend to you and then pick a box. And on this form, your counselor will also be asked to compare you with the other students in the same applicant pool, academically, extracurricularly, and personally. From your counselor can say, no basis, I have not met the student yet, to one of the top few I've ever encountered. To get something like a selective university, it's you need to stay here. Ideally, I'd like you to be here. But and in order for you to counselor to write a glowing letter of recommendation, he or she must know you, right? So your job after today, when you go back to school, is to meet with your counselor. And in this meeting, you discuss all the things on this slide. and one of which is to ask your school about school ranking. Because ranking is very, very important in selective admissions. As you know, they cannot take everyone, so they often pay attention to, the student's relative standing. The reason you need to find out about ranking is, again, you need to know whether they take your 9th grade GPA into consideration, whether they use weighted GPA, or whether they use unweighted GPA, so that you can plan accordingly. Counselors, they also have many, many rich resources, some of which include the following. When you ask your counselor for information, sometimes he may say, well, I know I have the information, I just need to find out, where it is. And that's often a sign when your counselor is overwhelmed, and maybe an opportunity for you to offer your help. So you can offer to help, for example, enter all the data information into Excel spreadsheet by category. And when you do that, you will not only earn the gratitude of your counselor, you will also be the first one to have access to such critical information. And on top of that, when you help your school, you are becoming a better citizen, and that's what colleges are looking for. Another thing I'd like you to find out from your school is about alternative education policy. These other things often lie outside a standard academic curriculum, but when you do them, they help you stand out from the pack. Now remember, what you need to graduate is often very different from what you need to enter for college. And for this reason, I like to go through 5 schools with you so that you know what I'm talking about. Each year there are lots of students rejected by MIT. And sometimes they came to complain to me, I don't understand. I have taken so many AP courses, I got A's in all of them. Why they reject me? And usually I would tell them because they missed required subject area. There are many high school students thinking, if they skip physics, they're going to be okay. But I can tell you that's really not an option for MIT. Another thing I'd like to mention is, whenever you see college like a MIT recommended, I'd like you to read as required, okay? And also when you see 1 year of something, I'd like you to read as at least 1 year. Yeah, because the competition requires it. Now NYU, quite straightforward, very clear. If you know this in your freshman year, it helps you plan, right? But not all the schools are this straightforward. Now let's look at another college not far from here. Didn't I say when you see this, you read it as required? So this really means 1 year of calculus is required, okay? And when they say 2 years science with lab, that really means minimum 2 years for English major, and for those who major in science and engineering, you do better do 4. Now Princeton. And I like you to read it with common sense. Sometimes universities, they don't do a good job for even, Princeton doesn't do a good job. Look at it here. They say 4 years of math, including calculus for students interested in engineering. And I like you to read it as including calculus for students interested in math, science, and engineering. Now Stanford. And you will see one keyword again and again, significant. What does that mean? That means advanced, deep. Again, when you say 3 years of history, 3 years is for engineering major, and 4 years is for those who want to major in social sciences. So anything in common among all of these universities? Strong emphasis on foundational courses, and they like you to have good breadth and depth in all of the core academic subject areas. And they like you to take physics, and they like you to have calculus. So if you graduate from high school with just a pre-calculus, that's just not strong enough from their perspective. So what's the message? The first message is that universities, they see a strong correlation between your high school performance and how well you're going to do in college. And the second message is that they are looking for students who are extremely well prepared so that they can run in college. This message, I will come back later. I will talk about this. This is a special one. And the last one is, when your grades are good, when you are strong, you make the institutions look good. Institutions are managed by people. They like to look good and they like to brag. And here is one example. Look at Boston College. At first sight, I bet you'll be very impressed. Why not? But as a professional, admissions professional, I would demand much more information than this. I would say, okay, this is how many students applied, and this is how many students actually matriculated. There's one very critical piece of information that's missing. What is it? Number of students they actually admitted. They may have admitted 30,000 and they got this many. They may admit just 5,000 and they get this many. And to me, that makes a world of difference. And that says a lot about the institution. And that's called admissions yield. And that's a totally separate subject that I'm not going to get into today. See how they brag, how many students being number 1 in the high school, number 2 in the high school. So what if your grades are not that great? What do you need to do? The first thing is you need to do is to stop it. Like stocks, grades sometimes can just get worse, if you don't do something about it. The second thing is when you are not doing that great, I really like you to reset your priority. When you go home, do your homework first, before you play or even before you do your sports, because academic should be your number 1 priority in high school. The next thing is if you're not doing well, talk to your teachers immediately. Teachers are the ones who can see perhaps you are approaching a problem from the wrong direction, and they may be able to turn you around. They are also the ones who can offer you opportunities to improve. There are so many teachers out there that are willing to work with you on your first draft, second draft, and then they give you grades until your better draft. So take advantage of it. And then another person you need to see, that is your high school counselor, because he or she would be the one who knows all the resources that may be available, for you to take advantage of. And he is the one also can work with you to reset your schedule. And then the last option is get a tutor. So here's the freshman action. So as early as 9th grade, I like you to start thinking of taking SAT subject tests. Why? because the best time to take SAT-2 tests is when you just finish your coursework. That way, the materials are still fresh in your memory. Beginning February next year, you no longer have to report everything that you took. You just pick the better ones to report. So for that reason, I encourage you to try and take as many tests as you feel comfortable, and then report the good ones, and then work on improving the weak ones. Freshman year is also time for you to try many different activities in your school. And then beginning of your second semester of your freshman year, I like you to start to think of what you like and what you don't like, so that you don't stretch yourself too thin. In your freshman year, I also like you to start to develop good citizenship. What does it mean? It goes back to what Dean Shaw said. It's really thoughtfulness. You think for other people. This is really a big one, especially after 9/11. Remember, colleges, they are like residential communities. And when you go to college, you will be there 24/7. Yes, the colleges, they want the most talented, they want the best, but at the same time, they are also looking for students who have outstanding personal quality, and students who show concern for other people, and students who will be positive influences in the classrooms, in the labs, in the dorms, and on the sports field. So you may say, okay, that sounds good. How do I develop good citizenship? Actually, it's not that hard, as long as, that's something you're willing to do. So for example, if you are going to a social event today, after this event, don't just go there to eat. When the party is over, perhaps you can stay late to help the host family clean. And when you're helping other people, making the host family's job easier, you are demonstrating good citizenship. When you see the water bottle is running out of water, you change it instead of waiting for someone else to do it for you. And that's good citizenship, and that's what colleges are looking for. Now I'd like you to read something from Dean Brenzel from Yale University. When I say 1, 2, 3, go, I'd like you to start with so many. Ready? Go. For students who are seriously committing themselves to make this world a better place. Now I want all the high school students to read the second paragraph as if you're talking to the dean. Okay? Ready? Go. We seek
academic excellence, evidence of leadership,
integrity, and the evidence of high personal impact on others. Colleges want you to move, shake, and drive a club instead of participating in a club. Keywords, movers, drivers, shakers, those are the people they are looking for. In your freshman year, I also like you to read as much as you can. Reading not only helps with your vocabulary, it also gives you inspirations on your essays, helps improve your communication skills. I just want to know, the high school kids are the only ones who have to read. I tell you, Yao Ming, he reads. Not only he reads, he reads to the kids to inspire their love for learning. And Bill Gates, he reads as well. As a matter of fact, every year he has a recommended reading list for all of his executives at Microsoft. And in your college applications, all the colleges, most of them, they ask you, what did you read? And they ask you to write essays about what you have already read. So keep a log of everything you have read outside the classes. Research awards and a competition, that is a big one because it applies to all 4 years. I'm going to come back to this later. And for those of you who want to play varsity sports in college, I'd like you to go to this website, ncaa.org. Okay, that's a totally different game. So your success in your high school not only depends on how hard you work and how smart you are. To a great extent, it tests your time management skills. I'm a big fan for writing everything down. This is not hard to do. It will just take you a couple of minutes. Put down all the core subject areas and keep track of them so that you know how far you are still from MIT, how far you are from, NYU. That way, you will have no missed subject areas when it's time for you to apply. Do the same thing with your extracurricular activities. You're very busy. If you can start to write things down in your freshman year, it will become handy in your senior year when you apply for college. Now, sophomore year. How are you doing? Study, again, is your number one priority. If you do well, you offer to become a TA to help those who might need help. And if you are not doing well, ask for help. Don't wait. For those of us, I'm terrible at math. And I know, some people probably, just terrible at learning a foreign language. And still others, they are very smart kids, but there might be something going on at home that distracted them. So how do you fix when there is a problem? So let me give you an example. If you failed an English course, I'd like you to take it in the summer, an English course. But it would be even better, you can take a more advanced course than you take in the very beginning. That way you can show that you can do it. It's not your ability. It was something else. Now, continue good citizenship development. Very important. Continue to prepare for standardized tests and take them. And this is one where I like to spend a little bit time. Beginning your sophomore year, I like you to start to think of innovative ways that may help you stand out from the pack. What does this mean? I have a quick exercise for each one of you. Now, pretend you're all admissions deans in the nation, okay? If you ever wanted to be a Harvard dean, just think you are the Harvard dean right now, okay? Because I'm going to ask you to make a decision. I am going to show you 4 pictures, but we only have 1 admissions slot, so you can only pick 1 person. After I finish showing all the 4 pictures, I want you to tell me which one you are impressed and which one you might take as the dean. Here comes our first one. Tell me who you are impressed with. Anybody there? They all look the same. Anybody there? one, she is in a pool that has very few competitions. Therefore, that makes her one of a kind, right? And number two, she's different. There are very few people like her, and therefore she stands out. And when you smile, I know you have made your decision as the dean. So keep in mind, when you do your things in high school, always think of what is going to separate me from 20,000 applicants. Now I'm going to give you a few examples just to give you some inspiration, hopefully. While most of the kids they play piano, which is great, there's this one guy, he learned the art of piano tuning. And he even started his own company called Alex Piano Tuning. On top of that, he wrote a book, Chapter 1, Learning to hear the beats. Chapter 2, Tuning the bass. Chapter 3, Tuning the treble. Chapter 4, Tuning proverbs. By doing that, he's turning himself into an expert in a field that has very few competition, and therefore he can stand out more easily in the pool. While millions of people play soccer, there are very few referees. Imagine by the time you graduate from your high school, you already judged over 100 games. And while other kids write about playing soccer in the essay, you share your perspective as a referee. Art classes. Many of us, we go to art classes as scheduled. But there is one student, she developed a passion for Tibetan art. So she created a gallery on the web, and that caught lots of Americans' attention, and she started to sell her artwork. There are many of us, we like to cook, and we cook at home. But here comes one guy. He loves to cook. And last summer, he became the assistant to the cook at P.F. Chang. And this summer, when the cook was sick, he was called in to work as the cook substitute. And for me, I can almost hear the admissions officers bragging, in the 20,000 students, we have a guy who was a cook at Chef Chan. But nobody's going to say we have the guy who cooked at home, because you have no impact. That's the key word. You like to dance. Here's someone in your competition in the applicant pool who joined a San Francisco dance company. So who would you rather admit? Someone who sounds like someone else, or someone who really stands out as a unique individual? And to me, that choice is clear. And I hope it's going to be clear for you after today. Now, sophomore year is also a great time to start planning for your portfolio. What is a portfolio? It's a collection of your best work that you want to send to college for them to see. Seeing is believing, and I want to show you something. Both Princeton and Harvard, they have one essay that is, what do you like to do for fun? And both of these two students, Jennifer and Jason, they expressed a love for art. So let's see. I like all the female voices to read Jennifer, and then I like all the male voices to read Jason. So Jennifer, ready, set, go. On the paper, I like to depict the beautiful things around me, like the pinky lotus flowers or deep red sunset. I also like to add my own imagination. Isn't this beautiful? Now I'd like the male voices to read Jason. Ready? Go!
Art. I use Chinese brushes, varying shapes and sizes to draw landscapes, animals, figures, and flowers. And a long filtered Chinese rice paper.
Amazing presentation. Both Jennifer and Jason did a fabulous job. They made you want to see their work. And here comes Jennifer. She supported a collection of her artwork for you to see. And here comes Jason. Okay, sophomore year is a time to start to collect your best work. A few more sophomore action plans. Yeah, I don't have time to go into all the details, so I'm going to keep going. Now, sophomore is also a great time for you to start college newspapers. Why? Number one, it's really fun to read college newspapers. And number two, it will help you write your essays when it's time for you to apply. Most of the universities ask you, why do you apply for Columbia? Why do you apply for WashU? And you need to have some substance and good understanding to tell them why. And here are some of the real essay questions asking you why you apply. And this is why it will be helpful for you to read the papers. And here are a few college papers. And you can read all of them online. Another thing that's good for you to do in your sophomore year to spread the workload so that you don't have so much to do in your junior year is to initiate contact. They like you to initiate contact, and this is also a way to demonstrate that you are serious about the college you are applying, and therefore it's more likely they will take you seriously. Now, junior year. I want to comment about the last bullet, apply early. This is why I want you to look at the statistics. If you look at this table, the only institution it's okay for you not to apply early is perhaps MIT, right? For all other schools, there is a huge statistical advantage for you to apply early. Now, senior year, you're going to be busy. Almost all the private universities, they have interviews except Stanford. So you have to practice for interview, and you have to prepare materials for your teacher letters of recommendation. And you also have to monitor your application status. And don't forget to write thank you notes to those who helped you. Now, extracurricular activities. This is a big one, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this. I see extracurricular activities as your big opportunity to do what you love. You know, if you say that you are passionate about the environment, then become your school's environmental ambassador, making sure that all the kids in your high school, they recycle, conserve water, and save energy each and every day. And if you say that you love to write, it's nice to say that you love to write, but it would be much better for you to demonstrate that you edited your school's literacy magazine and you wrote editorials for your school's newspaper on a regular basis. I really like to see that you go crazy, with what you love and turn your passion into action. So when you are excited about what you do, and when you communicate regularly with your counselor and with your teachers, and I tell you, that excitement and that accomplishment will be visible in your college admissions folder. Very few of us, we can do lots of things at the same time and do all of them well. So for this reason, I'd like you to pick and choose and focus, because colleges reward excellence. And I want to show you a few examples. Have you ever come across a table tennis champion who is also a soccer champion? No, right? So usually you stay in one track, you excel in one thing, and that's where all the rewards are from. No secret. This is how you do it. Now this is MIT's, their statement on extracurricular activities. Basically what they're saying is college is not a costume party. You are not supposed to come dressed as someone else. Do what you love and follow your passion. Now summer is a time, for some of the people to advance, for some people to catch up, and for others to travel, and still for others to, to recuperate in some other way. Almost all the colleges, they offer like a summer college program, right? Yeah. There's one thing, actually two things I want to advise you. One is don't pick a summer program because of its name. For example, the Stanford Summer Program for high school kids, most of the courses were taught by students. So do pick up the phone before you, pick an institution asking, what's the percentage of faculty teaching those courses? And the second question I'd like you to find out before you select any college program is whether you have opportunity to do projects in addition to homework and getting a grade. The beauty of a project is that, when you finish the program, a project is something that you can walk away with, and perhaps that's something you can use as your portfolio, a research paper, a design that you can present to college so that you can kill two birds with one stone. There are many parents, they feel that they have to send their kids to Africa to get ideas for essays, and I strongly disagree with that. I feel with every opportunity, comes more opportunities for ideas for your essays. Here is one, and I like all of the students here, including students from elementary school, to read together, okay? Start from I succeeded, and I want you to see how this student promoted himself. Okay, there's something to be learned about how best to present yourself. Now ready, go. I succeeded. In this competitive environment, I was in the top 5% of 100 students. The professor said, many students are intelligent, but not many are able to combine that intelligence with excellent intuition like I have. Amazing self-promotion. Guess what? It works. And if the professor can write a letter testifying what he stated, and this student will be a shoo-in in college. Now, another kind of summer program. These are non-academic programs, like this is really for people who want to, try something new, do something fun. Internship programs, summer jobs, those are great opportunities for you to build up your resume. Between volunteer and jobs, I would say always go for the job. And when you cannot find a job, that's when you go volunteer. But if you can manage both, that's great. So what I'm saying that if it competes, because working on a job will probably teach you the same thing as a volunteer work would, but the benefit is that you get some income. Now, let's read. Someone wrote from his experience as a worker. Everybody, this time. Ready? Go. Mr. Nelius. Isn't this great? There's nothing fancy about what the student did, but it conveyed hard work, discipline, and maturity. It really made me like him. So you don't have to go to Africa. Now, volunteering. Why volunteer? Simply put, it's nice to help other people. We all have times we need to be helped, and when we can, it's such a blessing to extend our hand. Some of the challenges for the students is, okay, where can I find volunteer opportunities? And today I want to share two extremely valuable resources with you. One is called California Volunteers, and the other is Volunteer Match. Beautiful. So you enter, let's say you are on Volunteer Watch. You enter your zip code, you enter a keyword of interest to you. It comes up a long list of the things in the local area, some of which are very, very interesting. And I picked this one. Now, this South Bay Children's Medical Center is looking for individuals to help organize two special events this fall, a golf tournament and a dinner. If you would like to serve on the planning committee, please call. If you're looking for an opportunity that directly affects an agency's ability to help children, you have found it. This is a great one for those of you who declare, I am the future Martha Stewart. This is event planning. This is how you build up your credential by working as a volunteer. And for those of you who want to be a teacher, this would be, helping children. And for those of you who want to become a pediatrician, this is how you justify it. This is how you start. Now, essay about volunteering. Let's read this together. My time. Ready? Go! Beautiful presentation, very articulate, from a very, very simple event. Volunteer at a senior home in Cupertino. Summer travel. Travel is good only if you take it in. What does it mean, take it in? This means travel is different from vacation. Vacation is that you escape. You go to Hawaii, you dive into the swimming pool, you have a great time. That is vacation. Travel means you seek opportunities to expand yourself. For example, while you are in China, you visit a few schools there and you notice most of the kids, they wear glasses and you are concerned this becomes a cause. Okay? So Princeton and Harvard, they ask you in the essay, tell us how you spent your summer. So let me show you two samples and tell me the difference between the two. I'm going to read the first one, and when I finish, I will bring up the second one. Seattle, summer 11th. Oh, I ate apple fries, and it was not bad. And we went to Ranch 99 and had pearl drinks, and we went to the movies. It was supposed to be a family vacation. Not very exciting. I hope college is going to be much more exciting. This is for Princeton and Harvard. Now, may I have a high school student to read this paragraph? Any volunteer? Read slowly. Stand up.
I am part Hawaiian with a deep respect for Native American Hawaiian culture. As I grew and matured on Maui, I came to realize that tourism, while not entirely negative, more often than not served to cheapen my native culture. During my trip to China, I was ashamed to see how many of my American friends slip so easily into the culturally intensive tourist roles that I have seen so often at home. I was equally ashamed of being associated with such insensitivity, annoyingness.
Nice. Thank you, good job. Now, can you tell the difference of the quality of thinking? Okay, well, we are going to take a short break. Because we're very, very limited, constrained by time today, it's just not possible to really go into depth of any of the things I'm talking about. So my goal is really to touch upon as many aspects as we could, so that you get a flavor of what's out there. Okay, awards and contests, why are they important? On almost all the college applications, there is a section called if you have any awards and honors, list them here. Why? As you can see, the bullets here, those are all the undergrad math competitions Princeton University students participate each year. I feel the institutions are very much like our parents. You know, whatever makes our parents proud, make an institution proud. So basically, they want you to go to Princeton and continue to bring honor to Princeton. And they also use that section, awards section, as a way to identify potential stars. Let me tell you how important awards are from another angle. And what you see here is Stanford University's waitlist form. This is the most recent form. It's sent to all the students who will waitlist at Stanford, meaning they did not offer a seat to them, but they put them on the wait list. Should there be any openings, then they will move the people from the wait list to the admit list. And this is the instruction on the form, and I want to read it to you. We respectfully ask that you refrain from submitting any additional letters of recommendation from your counselor, teachers, alumni, friends, etc. We also ask that you refrain from submitting any additional materials such as writing samples, resumes, creative performing arts credentials, newspaper clippings, photos, research papers, certificates, etc. Additional materials of this sort will not be considered or returned. Now the next paragraph. However, you may use the space provided to inform us of any additional awards, accomplishments, grades, or scores since you last communicated with us. This is how important awards, accomplishments are. And you may say, oh, this sounds great, but how do I convert my effort into accomplishments? Now, I have a few ideas for you today. If you are an artist, I would ask you to use your creative talent to serve your community. Imagine all of the creative work in your church or in your school were created by you. And also imagine the kind of visibility that it will give to you. Now, when you use your talent to serve your community, you will no longer be that artist in a box. Instead, you will be an artist with an impact. And that's what colleges are looking for. Keyword, impact. And for those of you, who are dancers, I'd like you to consider joining a professional dance company. I mean, that's really the highest rank you could get. But not all the companies will give you an opportunity, right? Sometimes people just don't give you a chance. And if that's the case, I would ask you to start your own. Don't let anybody or anything stop you pursuing what you love and in which you will excel. And if you are a writer, I challenge you today, enter a writing contest. You may not win the first time around, but I bet you will learn a few things about winning pieces. And then you position yourself, you start again next year. And for those of you who have creative ideas, turn your ideas into a small business. You may fail, but I can tell you this, you will never be at the same place where you first started. So this is how you convert your journey, when you challenge yourself and when you take, what you do to a higher level, that is accomplishment. Now, there is much curiosity about the students who made the the International Mathematics Olympiad team. Many parents ask, what kind of students? Are they all nerdy kids? What's special about them? So today I want to take the opportunity to show you who these kids are and what do they have in common and what they don't have in common and how they get there. If there is anything in common, I would say is they're very diverse, right? And the only thing they have in common is perhaps winning the USA Mathematics Olympiad. Now, how do they get there? How many of you have heard of the AMC? Okay, it stands for American Mathematics Contest. It starts with AMC 8. It's for kids who are in grades 10 and under. And then for students in grades 10 and under, they take AMC 10. For kids in grades 12 and under, they take AMC 12. And the winners of those 10 and 12 will be invited into the next round, which is called American International Mathematics Examination. And then the winners will break out from that to enter into the USA Mathematics Olympiad. And then they go to a summer camp. And then they go to represent the US by going into the International Math Olympiad. It's a long journey. It's a long journey. So one of the strategy is to skip this. If you really want to to challenge yourself, and you're truly talented, and this is definitely something you should do. But I also want to tell you there are many, many other national math competitions that you can participate. If you are not a champion here, you can be a national champion elsewhere, and that would also help you tremendously. And today, because of the time limit, I will only be able to use math as an example. So here are some of the resources. Local high school math contests. Local Math Circle for high school kids. I want to mention about the Stanford Math Circle. How many of you have heard about it before? Yeah. Everybody knows Stanford Chinese School, but very few know about this wonderful Stanford Math Circle. It's totally free. It's every Thursday from 2 to 4. And you work with a Stanford professor and a couple of tutors. Wonderful thing to add to credential. Now, National High School Math Contests. So finally, I have a few words of wisdom for you before we start the Q&A session. That's my presentation. I think we're going to Q&A session.
If you have a question, just write down to the paper. Okay, we will try answer all the questions.
What advantage does the IB program hold versus the AP program towards college admissions? There is no advantage. It will be treated exactly the same way as AP. If you could, try to get the IB diploma. It's very rigorous. What if you don't have a 4.0 GPA? Is it possible to remain competitive? Absolutely. Especially if you're outstanding in some other ways, and those are the things should dominate your application. Do parents participate as active alumni help the children's admission? It really depends on the institution's legacy policy. You know, some institutions, they consider legacy only if your parents went to that college. they would not consider your grandparents. Others, like Stanford, they consider everything. So would participate help? It would be helpful for me to know which college you are talking about. But generally speaking, it should help if your kid is also strong. Taking the kids of alumni doesn't mean that the kids are weak. You know, if everything goes equal, they have an advantage. Is it better for an applicant to take as many as AP courses with a GPA of 3.0 or focus on the main AP courses for the future major with a GPA of 4? Well, depending on what colleges you're talking about, if you're talking about Princeton, Harvard, and Stanford, I'd like you to have a close to 4.0 GPA in the most rigorous courses. Some high schools use weighted GPA, some use unweighted GPA. How the college compare these two? Good question. For most of the colleges, like Chicago, MIT, Caltech, they recalculate your GPA. So they do take into consideration, the weighted courses. So usually what you see your GPA is very different from what college see your GPA, because they kick out all the soft courses like a physical education, even leadership. That's not counted as one of the courses in the fundamental subject areas. So in other words, they only calculate the GPA in English, math, science with lab, one foreign language, history / social science. That's it.